Imagine a place where rusty metal and fresh green shoots belong to the same family. Where a salvaged wheel, a chipped enamel basin, and a painted shutter each find a new voice among cottage blooms. Upcycling and gentle hands turn forgotten things into cozy vignettes, so every corner reads like a friendly chapter. Practical, playful, and steeped in quiet charm. This garden is built from history, hope, and a little bit of stubborn joy. Imagine stumbling upon a porcelain clawfoot bathtub at a yard sale and picturing it overflowing with foxgloves and thyme. That's the start of many vintage garden stories. A bathtub planter becomes more than a vessel. It anchors a small wild garden, tells a story about reuse, and invites bees and butterflies. In the sunshine, its chipped enamel contrasts with the softness of trailing geraniums and rosemary, while in autumn it offers a secret mound for late-season mums. Placing it off-kilter against an old fence or beneath a climbing rose creates a vignette that looks collected over years. The charm doesn't come from perfection but from the harmonies between metal, wood, and living things. A small theatrical set where the cast is plants and the props are reclaimed history. There's a particular hush that reclaimed wood brings to a border, the grain and weather stains whispering old stories. Whether salvaged from a barn, pallet, or fence, reclaimed planks make soft, uneven edging that lets grass tumble over and wildflowers lean in. These borders don't compete with the plants. They frame them, like an old wooden picture frame that's seen sun and rain. In the spring you'll notice the moss in the cracks. In winter, the silhouette remains steady and honest. Using wood this way keeps the aesthetic gentle and lived in, and every knot and nail hole becomes a small testament to the garden's layered past. The best garden treasures are the ones you don't plan for. an iron urn with a missing foot, a chipped enamel sign, a small bronze birdcage. Antiques introduce narrative. A bench once sat in someone's kitchen. A rusted dolly rolled through market stalls decades ago. Placing these pieces among gravel paths and herb beds creates tiny moments of discovery. They invite a visitor to slow down and imagine who last used them, while the plants soften and integrate each item into the living scene. Over time, lichen and patina temper their edges further, blurring the line between artifact and nature until everything feels as if it's always belonged there. Metal buckets and barrels carry the scent of past labors and make lively companions to cottage roses and sedums. With a few holes for drainage and a thoughtful mix of soil, they become mobile garden rooms. One for chives by the kitchen door, another for a trailing vine near the swing. Their metal skins catch light differently through the day. Bright coppery flashes at noon, soft rust tones at dusk. Group them in odd numbers, mix heights, and you get a dynamic composition that's both pragmatic and artful. These containers feel comfortable in a rustic setting because they don't try to be new. They celebrate their weathered character. A tired ladder leaning against a sun-dappled wall suggests stories of reach and repair, and it's an irresistible canvas for plants. Potted herbs, cascading succulents, and small mason jars of cuttings can find a new home on rungs that once led to lofts or attics. Old fence panels, arranged as backdrop screens, create textured layers for climbing roses or clematis to weave through. These vertical elements add depth without taking much ground space, and they often become the first place birds and insects investigate. The effect is intimate. The garden feels taller, more secret, and like a small theater where vines perform each season. Lighting changes everything. A garden that's ordinary by day becomes enchanting at night. Recycling glass bottles into pendant lights, stringing up worn lantern frames with LED candles, or nesting mason jars and shepherd hooks gives a soft, nostalgic glow. The lights highlight textures, the grooved bark of old posts, the silvered edges of metal planters, the translucent petals of late-blooming flowers. At dusk, pathways become storylines, benches become gathering points. Rustic lighting made from recycled parts is gentle on the electricity bill and rich in atmosphere, turning routine evenings into small celebrations. A wagon wheel propped against a shed or nestled among lavender instantly suggests travel, seasons, and movement halted in time. Wheels, wooden or metal, work as both focal points and frames for climbing plants. They can be painted in soft tones or left to silver into their natural finish, hosting succulents in small pockets or serving as trellises for vining sweet peas. Their circular geometry contrasts with the garden's linear beds and paths, adding an old-world punctuation mark that hints at rural histories and playful nostalgia. A petite armoire repurposed as a potting nook, a battered dresser whose drawers hold succulents, or a chaise-turned planter. Converting indoor furniture for outdoor life gives a garden a personality that pre-made pieces can't match. These conversions are less about perfection and more about memory. The scent of the old finish, the faded paint that once matched a kitchen, now harmonizing with climbing jasmine. Set a vintage chair by a small table and you have a reading nook. Hang a mirror from an old frame and the light multiplies. Each piece becomes a stage prop for daily life in the garden. are the garden's narrative lines, where feet tell the story of how the space is used. Paths built from reclaimed bricks, broken concrete pieces, or slices of old timber create meandering routes that invite wandering. Their irregular edges slow your pace and reward exploration. A hidden bed of herbs, a bench tucked under a canopy, a patch of sun-warmed stones for planting troughs. Over time, moss and low-growing thyme take hold between the joints, and the path reads as part of the garden's original design rather than an afterthought. Recycled materials lend a lived-in continuity that new pavers often lack. The right finish can lift a forgotten object into a focal point. Sometimes it's the soft blue of milk paint, other times it's leaving the rust to tell its own tale. Patina and deliberate distressing are not tricks but tools to harmonize an item with its plant neighbors. A faded tin sign, a hand-stroked wash on a wooden crate, or the gentle sanding of edges makes new combinations feel cohesive. Finishes give you voice in the garden's conversation. Whether that voice whispers or sings, the surface treatment helps reveal an object's potential and invites it to belong. A cluster of mismatched containers, old tins, enamel kettles, chipped teacups, can become a charming herb garden on a sunny sill or a lively border chorus beside a path. Each container carries a memory and a scale. Small cups for thyme, taller tins for lavender. The mismatch is the point. The juxtaposition of sizes and textures feels curated yet spontaneous. Arranging these pieces in groups and varying plant textures turns everyday objects into intimate tableaus where details reward a second look. They're perfect for gardeners who love both thrift and surprise. sense of scale and a few strategic swaps can make a small budget sing. Swap sterile plastic pots for salvaged containers, frame a doorway with reclaimed shutters, or add a single eye-catching antique as a focal point. The happiest makeovers begin with patience. Watching for good finds, letting plants fill spaces slowly, and choosing a few meaningful pieces rather than many small, forgettable ones. These stories are about transformation without excess, making what you have feel more purposeful, textured, and quietly beautiful. A bench carved from old floorboards, a love seat built with thrifted slats, or stools stitched together from pallets create corners that beg for conversation. Reclaimed wood seating carries the touch of previous lives. Nail holes, faded paint, and weather-softened grain. Placed under a pergola or beneath a stout tree, these seats encourage pause. With soft cushions, a throw, and a small side table made from an old crate, the space reads as an invitation. Sit, stay, watch the light evolve across the garden. The seating becomes part of the room's story rather than mere function. A vintage rustic garden thrives when the planting choices respect place and season. Native perennials, pollinator-friendly mixes, and drought-tolerant shrubs reduce upkeep while deepening the sense of belonging. Interplanting herbs, flowers, and edibles blurs lines between utility and beauty. Thyme spilling into pathways, calendula brightening vegetable edges. Compost, mulching, and water-conserving techniques feed both soil and story. Healthier plants, fewer chemicals, and a garden that evolves in gentle cycles. The result is a space that looks natural, hospitable, and long-lived. Beauty is patient. It grows, softens, and returns the favor. Hand-mended objects and heirloom plants hum together. Proof that creativity and care can breathe new life into old things. When evening settles, the garden keeps its quiet conversation. Comforting, familiar, and quietly hopeful. A small, lasting proof that attention matters.